I'm terrified. Let's do this. Here's a question. Do you know how many YouTube channels there are? Well, according to Social Blade, in 2020, there were 37 million YouTube channels. So why? Why does there need to be 37 million and one? Well, there are two reasons. One is evolution and one is revolution. Let me explain. I've been a communications gal forever. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to staple blank papers together and scribble in them and pretend that I was writing a book. When I got a little older, I discovered the magic of reading, and I loved jumping on my pink bicycle and riding over to the library and checking out as many books as I wanted. You know, that was the era of Pippi Longstocking and Harold and the Purple Crayon, and all of those really wonderful books. Then in second grade, I had this really wonderful teacher, Mrs. Barber, and she was going to move away to Tucson at the end of our school year, so I wasn't going to see her anymore. Well, that last day of second grade, I went home that same day and I wrote Mrs. Barber a letter. Well, she wrote back, and that started a communication that went on for years. Many letters later, when I turned 15, my mom agreed to put me on a Greyhound bus and send me out to Tucson to go visit Mrs. Barber and her family. It was great. What was even neater was when I was a married lady living in Arizona, I took my husband to Tucson to meet and visit Mrs. Barber and her family. And that all started because this little second grade girl just loved writing letters. Fast forward a little bit to 1968, and the nation experienced a major tragedy with the assassination of Robert Kennedy. That affected everybody in the country, of all ages, even kids, and I was inspired by the tragedy to write a poem. I gave a copy to my dad, and I'm really glad I did, because over the years I didn't have a copy of it. Well, when I visited him a few years back, I was looking at his scrapbooks and photo albums, and he had a copy of that poem that I had written when I was 12 and dealing with the very sad assassination. And here's the poem that my dad had. So glad that he kept it. I remember my family sharing this poem around and reading it together, and I remember them being so proud of me that I could write and rhyme like this, and I just found it really magical that I could impact people with my words. Then I got to junior high, and it always seemed like I was the person with the camera, the one taking pictures at events and collecting memorabilia and putting these things into scrapbooks for the school. I was thrilled to be able to capture our history at the school for whoever would come after us. Well, I even went to the wood shop and asked them to make a scrapbook out of wood with the logo of the school on the front, Nimitz Junior High. Well, yes, they made the book. It was huge. It was this really huge, oversized wooden scrapbook, and beautiful. I like to think that that scrapbook still exists somewhere at Nimitz Junior High. Also at Nimitz, I was able to be a graduation speaker. I wrote a speech. I was invited to speak. It was such a special day, of course, graduation. But what was special for me was it was my first time in front of a microphone, and my first time to be able to share live my ideas with an audience. Very cool event in my life. My first time in front of a microphone, but not my last. By the time I got to high school, I was fully hooked on being part of organizing everything. I loved being part of the leadership groups, the school clubs that were putting together events for the whole community to enjoy. I loved seeing how these committees and groups of people could work together to make an event happen. And then I loved seeing how people could enjoy that, the fruits of our labor. That was just another evolution on my road to communications that I was on. But even though I was enjoying all these activities, and even though I was getting, some experience at these skills, what I didn't know is that all of these bits and pieces that I was doing would someday become a career. Well, anyway, after high school, I went to work at a bank. That wasn't the greatest employment match for me, but what I did enjoy was when they asked someone to volunteer to write for the bank newsletter. Well, they didn't have to ask me twice. So I became the correspondent from our department, and this is one of the newsletters that we produced while I was there. This says spring 1976, and in here is my page where I took the pictures and wrote the copy, and it was produced right here in our newsletter. I love ink. I still love the fact that this is how my first experience with getting my words printed in a publication, and I'm very proud of that. Really glad that I volunteered to do this, because you never know what volunteering could lead to, right? That's another video. Anyway, so after many twists and turns, and twists, I finally landed on my career path, and it had a name, which I had no idea about: public relations, marketing, and community relations. Wow, I was in heaven. Hard work, long days, but I enjoyed every minute of it because I felt I was working to help communities be better. But I also realized something along that time frame, that I realized that my career was always going to be about evolution. There was never a time that I was able to say, oh, I've got it. I know my job, A to Z. No, because my job was always changing on a day-to-day basis. We were always creating. Tech was always evolving. We were always trying to reach people in new ways and be creative about it. So you've experienced the same thing in your lives too. Typewriters became computers. Carbon copies turned to laser printers. DOS to Windows. Landlines to cell phones. And who remembers the Thomas Guide? The Thomas Guide of maps to GPS. So, okay, times were changing, and I was keeping up. I thought I had a great career going. It went well for a very long time, but then I decided I was going to go back to school. I wanted that degree that I had been chasing for years. So I went back to finish my bachelor's. And when I came out of UM with my degree in hand and 20 years of experience, I thought I was golden. I thought there would be headhunters from Fortune 100 companies and national campaigns knocking on my door. Nope. Something happened while I was pursuing that degree at UM and sitting all those hours in the library. Something happened. What happened was called social media. It had exploded while I was studying. And suddenly, those of us that were over 50 now became known as digital immigrants. Well, I couldn't do anything about the over 50 part, but I could teach myself about the new communication tools. And so, while I was enjoying my unemployment, I taught myself these tools. I created channels for myself, website. I thought, okay, this will do it. Well, unemployment went on a lot longer than I expected, but I finally did convince a small nonprofit to take a chance on me. And I spent several years at this organization proving myself and seeing my communication goals for the organization come to fruition. Fast forward, and now I moved to a new state. Well, it's deja vu all over again. Unemployment. What? After all my experience and my education and my recommendations? What? Well, during this latest unemployment, my very warm relationship with YouTube was becoming an obsession. I started watching YouTube with a new mindset. I was studying YouTube and the people on it and their paths and journeys on their channels. And then slowly, over COVID times, my next step on my communications evolution became clear. That brings us to part 2 of my why. Why for this channel? Revolution. Did anybody ever tell you that you couldn't do something that you knew you could do? Probably, huh? Well, my experience here was interviews were getting harder to land, which meant that jobs were getting harder to land. No one seems to be hiring seasoned professionals anymore. you had to hide your graduation year on your resume. And you had to get past the applicant tracking system. What? So despite my best efforts to continue my education and to stay current and to upload my professional portfolio online on my website and dye away the gray hairs, I was still on unemployment. So I got mad and decided to hire myself and start a channel, this channel. I'll show them. So this is my attempt to continue to evolve with the communications times. Also my attempt to prove that the class of 1970 something is still relevant. But don't go away if you're not a boomer. We're gonna cover a lot of topics here. You can think of me as your auntie or your big sister or the neighbor over the fence. Before I go, I want to apologize for my clumsy first attempt at YouTube and for any future clumsy attempts that I'm probably going to make. My hope is that I will get better at this and I will look back on this very video and laugh and go, oh, you know, that was so silly. All the YouTubers that I follow, that I respect, they say the same thing. They look back on their first videos and laugh too. I'm looking forward to looking back. Anyway, last but not least, outfit of the day, right? I mean, all good YouTubers do outfit of the day, and I have one to share with you. "65 years young. Today's my birthday." Yes, and I have strategically planned to launch this site on May 7th because 65 years ago today, my mother was giving birth to me in the City of Angels, and I'm giving birth to this. Believe me, I'm sure both events were painful. Getting this far on this YouTube channel, just this far, was painful at times, and I'm going to share that pain with you in the next video because that's what's next. The how of this channel is what's next. Not the technical how, but just wrapping my brain around this venture, this journey, this next step was a process, not without some labor pains. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you on the next time we meet up. Oh, the rest of my outfit of the day. If you know my family, if you've known us for a few years, you will recognize this birthday crown. We've had this, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe longer years. And every birthday for Leanne and I, we pull it out and we wear it all day long, no matter what we do. One time, I was out to dinner with family and the lady next to me said, "Oh, it's my birthday too." And I said, "Oh, would you like to try the crown?" Well, she tried the crown and she's showing it to her friends over there, and I started to get nervous, like, I don't know if I'm gonna get this crown back. But I kept my eye on her and I got my crown back. Anyway, yep, here's the princess crown. I will be wearing it to dinner tonight. I think it's Italian. I think I have been told that we're in for Italian tonight. But one more thing before I go, and I have to add this, that even though birthdays are about getting presents, I just feel like I've already gotten presents because the love and support that my family and friends have shown me in this latest journey of mine in starting this channel, and their encouragement has meant everything to me because this is a scary thing. But I am punching fear in the face and saying, I'm doing this, and I have really needed that love that I've been getting from my family and friends. You know who you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. That's it for today. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for staying this long. Thank you for letting me share my why with you. Take care, stay safe. I'm Angela, and I'm honored to have you on this journey with me.